Okay, good evening. It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. At this moment, let's go ahead and stand up for invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Gabby, if you want to lead us on an invocation, please.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity that you give us every day. Thank you for all the blessings and for always having you as by our side. Please give us the strength, give us the opportunity to take the right decisions for our community. Please keep blessing all of us, the city, the different departments, and of course our entire community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Do we have any visitors' remarks? No visitors' remarks. Okay, at this time, we'll be doing the public hearing to receive comments from the public on the proposed tax rate for fiscal year 2023 and 2024. Time is now 6:01. If nobody's here, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Right now it's 6:01 as well. Moving on to the action item. At this moment, we'll have the budget workshop, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the board. Want to start with the general fund. Should be the first one in your packet. If you'll recall, last week we went over revenue side. So we're going to start on page 3, which is the expenditures. And I will start because it's administration, and I'll just kind of go down, and then we'll pass it to each department head or their designee as we go. So administration, as you see, we kind of highlighted the payroll and the benefit part because that's part of the 4% increase that y'all approved last week. The next one under there is attorney, moving it up a little bit just because as we grow, there's always more and more things that become legal and an issue. The next one, auditor. If you'll recall, y'all approved a new auditing firm. Part of that was a pretty substantial increase, and y'all had me negotiate with them, and I was able to negotiate down. It's still a little bit higher than what it was before, but we were able to negotiate. The increase was about $12,000. We negotiated half of that off, so that's reflected in that next item, the $22,750. About halfway down, you see the Chamber of Commerce. Last meeting, y'all approved moving that from 36 to 42. Then a couple items down there is travel and training, 10,000 to 16. Generally speaking, we budgeted for administration travel. There has been some travel for y'all to go to different things, so we've increased that a little bit to be able to cover those travels that y'all have done to the different events. Maintenance of equipment and building is the next two that we've just increased a little bit. We don't have anything specific, but we want to be sure we keep this facility in top shape and keep it looking nice and keep it good. You might notice the wall on the right side is on the exterior needs to be painted already. So we just wanted to add a little bit and not get behind in keeping this facility very, very nice. So that's those numbers there in maintenance of equipment and building here. The next one that you might question is technology maintenance agreements. They went from $37,445 to $50,000. The reason why is we've moved some from other departments that through the years you put it in a department and then we go, why did we put it there? One of them is like the agreement for the payroll time clock. there's really no reason to spread that off all through the department. So we just put those underneath administration. The other one is like archive social media is a thing that we have to do to archive to meet requirements of the state of Texas, any emails, any text, any things like that. So instead of spreading those out throughout the budget, we just put them right there. So that's the reason for the increase there. Another piece to that was we'll finish up our it's $7,500 to finish up our planning and zoning update for the ordinances. And so that's something y'all approved probably about a year and a half ago, and we'll be able to finish it up this coming year. So that reflects those. And so really that's all of the items under administration that have changed, unless you have any questions specifically.
Hey, Mark, I have a question for you. One of the things that I think that we had spoken about was about employee appreciation and recognizing employees for your years of service, like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, so far, so on. Do we have a line item for that, or can we create one to where we recognize employees for the time they've served here in the community?
And with monetary also compensation following that? Bonus, thank you.
We can't do bonus. State law doesn't allow you to do bonuses. So no, we can't do that. You can do recognition and stuff like that. And yes, we do. And that'll be at the very end. I'll go over that. If you want to flip real quick to page number 8. We've got it labeled just as Thanksgiving Christmas party, but it really is employee appreciation. And so if you'll notice, we increased that from 2,000 to 5,000, so that will fit in just perfectly right there. So we'll work on something and come back to you with how that will look, what those appreciations will be on the different levels.
Okay, good. We can do it yearly, would be fine.
On advertising, Mark, $7,000 approved budget last year to $10,000. Can you give me a little bit of how we use that money? And the increase is fine, I understand. Yeah, that line item 6100. And how we plan to use that extra cash this year?
Yeah, most of it is just required notices that we have to give. And so like anytime we do a public hearing, we have to send a notice to the paper, and there are just more and more of them that are required. We do also a few times where Christmas is coming, we put Merry Christmas from city staff and city council, and that usually has y'all's picture on there. We do that for New Year and several times a year, but just through time, advertising has gone up as well. So that's what that is for. Anything else, or we could go on to municipal court?
Any other questions from the board, or do we move on? If no further questions, we can move on.
Hold on,
He's got another question.
heads and beds. What is exactly that?
Heads and beds is hotel motel tax that we receive revenue for, and then it's expensed out. It's very specific. The law states that it has to be an event that puts heads in beds, and that's why we just named it that, so that people wouldn't say, oh, well, I can spend that. And it's limited to the Conjunto Festival right now, Stock Show, Rodeo. Those are really the three things. If it's a one-day event or an afternoon event, kind of hard to to build a case that that's an event that will make people stay overnight. The only thing would be is if it's a very late night event on one night, then we could probably say that it's spent for that, so.
Thank you for the clarification on that, Mark.
Any further questions from the board about administrative?
Municipal court then, Jackie?
Good afternoon. So for the municipal court, we're proposing a 282,403 budget. The two more significant changes you'll see will be under the contract services judge, which is right below that shaded area. It'll reflect a $5,000 difference because of the temporary judge that's being proposed. And also on the court technology annual maintenance, you see a drop of about $12,000. And that's the area Mr. Milam was referring to in the beginning about some services being allocated in the court that should really be in the admin section, sorry. And that's pretty much it. Any questions? Thank you.
And that one, Mark, there wasn't much of an increase, right, the court, other than the judge part? Is that the only increase we had for the municipal court?
Correct. Overall, it's, when you take out the salaries, it's a 5.2 decrease. So they're doing more with less or the same with less, so. And that includes that 5,000 for a backup judge.
Sorry, Ms. Jackie, forgot. Is there anything you feel you may need on top of that, or some, something you have in mind that you feel? Because it's only, we're only increasing $5,000, right? And so I appreciate running these numbers. But there's something out there that you felt maybe we could have added a little bit more to, and what?
No, I think we're good. I think it's a pretty healthy budget for the revenue that we receive. I did request, or we all requested increases, which were, I guess, the 4% increase that was approved. So I think that's good. I think we have a healthy court department. So.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Any other questions from the board in regards to municipal court?
We're okay.
The next one on top of page 4 is tax assessor collector fees, and really that's nothing we control. The first one is the fee from the appraisal district, and what they do, they set their budget and then they expense it out to all of the entities according to population. So that figure 33,967 is given to us from them. What they charge to do their appraisal districts throughout the city. And the next one, the county contract, is for collecting current property taxes. And as you can see, just because it's going to go up, because of the values have gone up, it's projected to go up a little bit as well. And that's all for those two.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any questions from the board? Pretty self-explanatory, but anybody have a question? If not, we'll move on to IT.
Next one is IT, and Oscar will fill you in.
How y'all doing?
Hello, Oscar. How you doing?
Doing well. So we have only really two changes. If you look under 02220 contract IT services, we did increase it about 6,000 across the board, but it is split, so you'll see about a 3,000 increase here. Is there any questions about that?
The split is water and sewer, the utility account, so you'll see it there, the other half of that.
So how do you function working through the city? I know we have PD, fire department separated along with city hall and the water department. So you work through all the systems?
Me personally, yes. So I manage all the systems at every facility that we have. So an important piece for these contractors is supporting me through kind of being the hands-on piece at those locations. I don't know if that answered your question.
Somewhat. And on call, I know we're getting into hurricane seasons, or is that something that's also tied to you? I know some people here were pretty much on call at all times. Are you there as well?
So far I've been present. I know we had incident this past Saturday where I had to be present at the building. But again, like these contractors will also provide assistance if I'm not available. They can come in and perform any kind of emergency actions that can get us back on board.
Have we used that system with you present? I know you just recently came aboard.
Yes, we have.
For?
So we had an incident where they provided coverage for a few days, and they kind of just touch point with each employee here. And today we had coverage as well, working at PD, and we're able to resolve a lot of issues over there. So even though it's not kind of off hours, they are still very important, kind of the day-to-day to get things handled.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Any other questions regarding that item?
I got one question.
Yes, sir.
Under capital outlay, there's a $60,000 increase.
Yes.
What is capital outlay?
So capital outlay is kind of what the city will use to procure any new assets or kind of maintain our current assets. They could be used for new upgrades for the environment. So there's a lot of projects that we're going to be doing to improve this environment. So capital outlay is really used for that. Because I'm so new here, I haven't had time to kind of go through the whole process with any of the vendors that we use and the new companies that we work with. So it's hard to kind of create a specific line item for those companies without having the kind of like the set in stone numbers. So capital outlay is kind of our overarching budget right now for those projects that we're going to be doing throughout the year.
Do you have one in mind?
As far
Something
as
that you would dip into like right now if it's available?
yes, so we do have, I'm currently working with a company right now, and we're in the beginning stages of the project. So I did give Mark kind of like the guesstimate numbers, the kind of my experience, and then looking online from our CDW vendors, getting a number from that. And just with that project alone, we're already going to be about $30,000, $40,000 deep. So that's kind of the big upgrade. And I know that number may sound scary, but that's going to set us up for 3 to 5 years, depending on how rapid the technology grows, right? We can't control that. So right now it may seem like a big jump, like 60,000, that's a lot to ask for. But like I said, this is money that's going to help us long term, and the project's going to be very beneficial for the city overall.
The other piece to it is additional security for our system. You see where folks have problems, where people get into their emails, get into their finance system, and so he's working on that end too, to make it more secure, and to make it more secure, it costs money.
Just to make sure, like, for example, when information gets compromised and then we have to pay for like credit monitoring for 2 years because somebody got into our server and was able to take information, that kind of.
Exactly. So the big piece, when we think about technology, right, is everything in this building, everything at PD is almost run through technology. So a simple thing as someone's password will get them access into our finances, PD comms. They can really get into anything. So it's simple things that are really unsecure right now that will have big impact down the road.
How old is some of that technology we have right now that you're looking to upgrade? What are we looking at?
So it's less of the fact of the technology's age, rather the configuration. So all the technology that's been purchased is bought and it doesn't really mesh well. So that's really the problem, is that money was spent in a way that wasn't really efficient, setting up the environment in the most secure way possible. So the new company will kind of eliminate that. And going forward, we don't have to get rid of that equipment that we have. We'll be able to incorporate it into the new company for different, like storage options, security options. I know Mark really wanted a redundant system set up in place between us and PD and kind of keep the city more secure, from data loss. So we'll be able to use that equipment that's been purchased already and kind of turn it into something it's going to actually be useful. But that new company that we're going to be working with, that new equipment is fairly new. But like I said, it's less about the age and more about the configuration of the environment.
Well, we're glad we hired you, because I guess that was, if you can provide some help in that and help us stay protected, I think that's always a great thing, and we're looking forward to you getting the system set up and protect the city. So thank you.
Hardware, right underneath that, hardware $2,000, previous 16,000, now 2,000. What does that involve if, on the outlay itself? What's the difference between that?
So like I said, really the hardware piece of it, the capital outlay, so about 20,000 of that 30 to 40,000 with the company for this new project is hardware related, but it's hard to get a set in stone number from them because they have to work with our CDW reps. So 2,000 for the hardware, that number, it doesn't seem that high, especially for saying, hey, we're gonna have a lot of projects coming forward. So that's where that capital outlay piece will come in.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. If anything, that's with the hardware and the software part is where we would see that, but it's in the outlay.
Yes.
Mark, I have a question for you. Do we have other line items within the departments for IT, or is it all centralized with the IT director?
Centralized with the IT director, except for some of the technology agreements are in the different departments.
So if something went down at the police department, with anything having to do with IT, it would fall under his budget, or?
Mostly, yes.
And
Because
whatever,
we don't want, nothing against the PD, but we don't want them buying computers and buying stuff. We want this guy doing it. We want everything to go technology through him. We had a time where that was not so many years ago, but then you end up having people buying things that don't mesh like he's talking about. So that's the reason why we do it that way.
Okay, that's fine. We also have within our city code, we do have an expense that has to be authorized by the council anyway, regardless. It's a set amount, right? Is there 10,000 or 20,000 that's come before council?
50,000, and we have to go, well, once you approve the budget, we get to utilize the budget as is. There is a bidding process that's in play, and it's the state bidding, and anything over 50,000 has to be has to be advertised in a newspaper and posted in a certain length of time. Other than that, you get quotes or competitive bids depending on the amount.
All right, thank you, sir.
one last question, sir. In terms of the redundancy, like you said, like we have access, so I know you said there's maybe some departments that have, I don't know, separate software. I was trying to break that down. So, but you do have access to everybody's?
Yeah, so
System.
for example, the city hall has its own domain, so we're kind of, you can kind of think of it as like an isolated network, but we're still connected to the police department because they also have their own domain. So while we're separate, kind of on the network, we're still overall still together.
So if something does happen at a server at, let's say, the water plant, we still have access to be able to run those and function on that?
Yeah,
end?
so like we all have, that's what we're trying to set up is to be redundant. Like let's say the servers went down this past weekend at PD, well then they would be able to reach over to our servers and still be able to function properly while we fix their servers. That'd be the ideal setup. That's not currently how it's set up. So on Saturday when the issue happened, they were kind of, in the dark for 7 hours because we don't have that redundancy in place. So that's something that we're looking forward to getting set up.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
Thank you very much. Moving on to elections.
For elections, we're proposing 16,610. That's the proposal that the Cameron County Elections Department gave us for this coming November's election. Currently, for the 22-23, we didn't have an election, so that's why you see a dash there. For advertising, we're proposing 500, and then travel training from 1,400 to 1,500. But overall, that's pretty much it. No questions? Nope, okay.
No questions? Thank you. Moving on to Police Department.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. I'd like to thank you personally for the support that you've given us within the last years. We really appreciate it. I have a couple of items that I want to touch on. The first item would be 1510 Community Center overtime. We have a slight increase on that one for about $2,000. Apparently, the community center is now being utilized a lot more that since COVID hopefully disappeared. So, and people are renting it for longer hours sometimes. It usually was 4 hours, now it's 5 hours. So, so that's getting an increase on the manpower also. The next line.
Just for
What line item was that? I didn't
sorry.
catch it.
community center, the third one down,
Okay.
1510. I'm sorry.
for your information, they pay, whoever rents it pays for that, so we get that money on the revenue side.
The next one would be right under, it'd be 1515 police overtime for Stone Garden. That's a federal grant that we applied for, and we were allotted $71,000 for overtime. We've helped our federal partners at the river with everything that's happened in the past, and we also run it here in Site City, trying to deter crime, human smuggling, drugs, etc. So we had an increase on that.
With that, Chief, how many officers regularly do we send that way per month?
It depends. Usually we'll send 2 per shift when available, unless they request more. It's really up to the agency what they can send. So normally it's a minimum of 2.
Is that the most money we can get? Because I know all of that's given back to us. Is that the max that we can get on Stone Garden? 71?
It's generally it's through the county, and then they distribute the money that's allotted to the county. This is the most we've ever gotten. Like I said, it's probably, I would say that it's because we helped out quite a bit during the influx that they were having there. So I see that we'll probably be getting more in the future.
Yeah, because it's good money that the officers can make, right? They can work
Exactly.
on their spare time and take advantage of this. And everything gets reimbursed, right? All of this?
Yes.
Thank you.
On the overtime for school security, I'm sorry, overtime for 1525, that's Operation Border Star. That's another state grant that we applied for. This year we're allotted $40,000. Basically, it's a grant to also deter crime within our city limits. So we asked for, and we're allotted $40,000 for the coming year.
Mark, a question on those two, I guess, above. So this is all, it comes out of our budget, but we get reimbursed for that later, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Next line item would be uniform allowance, 044120. We're a budget for 15,000. We've asked for 20,000. We have to replace new uniforms for all the people that we've hired, I'm sorry. And we're about to hire some more, so the price uniforms has gone up like everything else, so.
Does that include weapons and equipment?
Yes, weapons, everything. The only thing is, they buy their own shoes or boots or whatever. The next line item is 4130 express, prisoner expense. We had an increase, a slight increase on that, due to, prices going up, you know, so what we were getting, for $1, now it's $1.50, so, with just price keep going up, so.
And that's breakfast, that's.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If we have anybody in the morning, they given up breakfast in the lunch and dinner in case we have somebody that's left over the night that hasn't been transferred to county jail, they can't make bond. So, you know, basically it's a pretty good deal that we've worked with the local restaurants here, so. Okay. The next one would be 07100 fuel for vehicles. We're asking for 60,000 with prices fluctuating up and down. I mean, I think this would be a safe proposal for us in case it goes up, in case it'll cover if it goes down, so.
Mark, on that one, on approved budget last year, was 74,000. This year is 60,000 is what they're asking for. So a reduction of about $14,000 on.
Correct.
Is there a reason why there's a reduction there, sir?
I think we're good with that.
If you'll recall, this time last year, price of fuel was sky high, and we were nervous that it was gonna stay. It didn't. It went down pretty quickly, so you'll notice that we're only projecting 50 for this year because of the lower prices. We are seeing some little, again, increase, so we didn't want to put it at 50. We're just putting it at 60 just to be a little conservative there.
Next line item would be 08100 repairs to vehicles. We've gone down to 36,000. We've gotten some new units. The only thing is we still have a couple of old units that until we get everything on the road, they're still going to be utilized in the meantime. So we have some older units for CID. So chances are, hopefully not, but they might break.
How about the vehicle that was involved in that accident? Is that on this report? Are we replacing that one? Or insurance?
No, we just got the estimate, and they're gonna total it, but they only give us about half value. Right. It's the present value of it,
Okay.
so that's not even included here.
Next item would be 09100 travel and training. That's for an increase of $10,000, or total of 10,000 from 7,000, increase of 3,000.
Sorry, Chief, which line am I is that?
Travel and training.
Travel training, 09100. So on this one, we're trying to, the new people that we've hired are freshly new, so they're good with their TICO license. But the older officers, we want to get them to specialized training. So it's increased. We're going to try to do Zoom. We also hired one of our officers that will be doing more in-house training, but the extra would be for sending somebody out for specialized training, like radar certification, instructor for that, or accident investigations, specialized training that usually run between a week and sometimes 2 weeks of training. So.
Hey, Chief, that number seems a little bit low. You want to increase it? I mean, 10,000 is like, what, $700 an officer, or $500 an officer?
Yeah.
The 10,000 seems kind of low for training.
Do we, on top of that, do we ask other, like, let's say county or detective, do we have to pay them for their services? If they come over here for a situation that we can't cover?
No. I think we're good with the training at this time, but, hopefully with, our new officer that we hired, who's gonna be doing a lot of the in-house, courses, so, this is basically for specialized training going out. And the last item that I have would be, maintenance of building, number 11110. From 3,000 to 8,500. We've remodeled the building, but some of the equipment in the jail, like the cells, the toilets are specially made. So sometimes we have to, if they break down apart or something, we have to order them from the state. So sometimes it is costly.
So it's not a Home Depot toilet?
No, no, unfortunately not. No, no, they're specially made, so, and normally the best price is through the state, so. And that's,
Just one more question. I know
Okay.
on the very last one on page 4, the maintenance of shooting range, I know we've been investing over the last few years with trying to help you guys out to get an appropriate shooting range out there. If, I think you guys have no change on that. Everything's been good enough. I know over in May, I was telling Mark on last meeting that we had, I did speak with one of your officers that was there assisting for the graduation. So I know they said they were very appreciative of having now concrete on the bottom so that they can pick up shells. Everything is more time, it makes it more efficient for them to be able to get in and out, to get some of that stuff. So, I guess if anything, I'm glad you guys are using it, you know.
That's Assistant Chief's project, so he tries to do the best he can. And yes, we did lay a concrete foundation, and it's a lot simpler to pick up brass, so.
Yeah, and Chief, on the front there shows that you have an annual $30,000 income on that.
I'm sorry?
range. There's a $30,000 income on that range, so we're making money with the range.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
sir. Yeah. And that's all the line items that I have. Any questions, other questions?
One more question there with the schools, the second and last one. School support and explorers program, what is that?
School support, that's basically, we get invited from school district. We buy, red ribbon, like Red Ribbon Week. We buy a kind of ribbons and stuff to give away to the students. Do elementary presentations, we have coloring books, and that's basically what that's used for.
Hey, Chief, in the miscellaneous, you went down from 5,000 to 500? Or was it 500, 5,000 and 500?
And 99-100, the last one?
The last one.
Okay. That one,
It was the same budget as prior year, but there was something, and I can't remember exactly what it was, that hit there this year.
I don't recall right now.
Pablo, you recall, or anybody?
Yeah, the 5,000 mark?
Yeah, under miscellaneous, usually we just do 500 because there's usually not
I
Not
believe that's
much.
when we were purchasing the licensing and stuff when it came to show the movies night out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
That's right.
Cost on that.
For last year, it was the licensings of when we did the
Movie night.
movie night, but the licensings are now so expensive, and so we're not doing it this year. That was,
Yeah, so really the one that says school support and explorers really is community outreach. Anything having to do with community,
pretty much,
Yeah.
yes.
okay.
Any questions for the police department from the board?
I have one question, Mark. We had talked about doing a breakdown, kind of like a pay for the officers. I know we have the increase as far as the percent, But did we ever make a scale pay or anything like that, or kind of like for clothing or assignment pays or certificate pay, all that stuff? You have it, Juan?
I was gonna go to that next when we finish, this, his department part, and Juan's got something to propose, not necessarily to go in effect immediately, but, for you to consider over, the next few months and see what you think about it, so.
All right, thank you, sir.
Chief, one more question there. How old is that building? Do you happen to know?
The building itself, built in the early 80s, I believe.
86, I believe.
If you have an opportunity to remodel something now, what would that be?
Remodel right now,
Was that clear?
if we had something to remodel at the PD.
We just did it whenever city administration moved over here. We redid the whole building. So don't ask them that question. They'll come up with something.
I'm just wondering.
A second floor?
I like to know dreams too, sir. Not just, I like to know dreams.
Right now, with the remodeling we did, we have ample room and maybe a second floor in the future, but,
How about a new building while we're at it?
well, that would work too.
I have
in
no
due
more
time.
questions.
I think that sums it up in regards to questions from the board, unless,
Thank you, Chief.
thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
At this moment, we'll be moving on to fire.
No, before we go there, I'd like,
Okay.
Juan's gonna
Sure,
give
Juan,
you,
come on up.
on the, kind of what they've come up with on a plan to retain and have a scale that people can look for 10 years and know what the expectations are.
Before we get started, Commander's gonna hand out the officer salary schedule. Good evening, Councilmen, Councilwomen, and Mr. Mayor. I would first like to start by saying thank you on behalf of the Police Department for the increase in pay that our officers received mid-year and also the first 4% that you increased this year. Our department wants to be a department that the city of Los Fresnos wants other cities to compete against us when it comes to pay. We don't want to be the department that's just recognized as a stepping stone for new officers that come before us. We want to make sure that we stay competitive in order to retain the officers. And that is why we bring to you, as per your request, City Council, the officer salary schedule. This salary schedule is for the City Council members to take a look at for the upcoming fiscal year. As we all know, the city of Los Fresnos is growing with new homes that are being built within our city and new infrastructure. One thing that I want you to keep in mind as council members, not just a population of 8,152, but also take into consideration the commuting traffic that goes through our city on a day-to-day out basis. So that's why I bring this to you as per your request. If you look at page 1 where it says probationary officer makes $22 an hour, and that gives you a salary of $48,620. That's a starting officer. The reason I have a minimum, midpoint, and maximum. And let me explain why we want to have that. If you have an officer that's going to come to the city of Los Fresnos that has experience, and I'm going to use Councilman Macias, for example, comes from Mission, came from Mission, retired from Mission, he decides to apply with us, and he has 30 years plus of experience that comes to the city, we don't want to start him at $22. We want to make sure that this guy, he's going to come to us, and we're going to give him a fair play. And it gives you a dollar amount to play with and to fluctuate with. At the same time, as you look at the minimum, midpoint, and maximum, also don't forget that there is a shift differential, $1 per hour, and a $2 differential for graveyard shift. We currently have 21 officers in our department, 7 dispatchers, population 8,152 to cover the city of Los Fresnos. So you go to page number 2, you're looking at years of service from a probation officer to all the way to 10 years. And you look at the pay, it's a 3% increase for every years of service that that officer is retained here in the city of Los Angeles. Something for y'all to look at, to think about for the near future when it comes to increases and when it comes to retention in the department. I know we've lost officers to other cities, municipalities and school districts, but I think if we work with this plan and with your approval of city council in the near future, and if this can happen, you're able to retain some of these officers here in the city. Page number 3. Officers' assignments and rank pay. Assignment pay. Officers can be assigned by the chief of police to a division other than the patrol. These officers can be entitled to assignment pay to be added per hour to their base pay as follows. Code enforcement currently at this time makes 50 cents assigned to code enforcement. We're asking for the upcoming years, it increases to $1. Detective assignment pay, currently $1 right now, and it's gonna remain $1. Now, if you go to the next section at the bottom where it says rank pay, officers' rank structure is one of the most important factors that ensures smooth and efficient operations of any police department. Officers assigned to a rank will be entitled to a rank pay to be added per hour to their base pay as follows. A corporate currently makes 50 cents as a rank pay right now, a sergeant making $1, and a lieutenant is making $1.50 currently. I know it doesn't reflect on the paper we have there, but we are asking for an increase from $1 for the corporal, $1.50 for the sergeant, and $2 for the lieutenant. Page number 4. Stipend. Officer may be entitled to an education or peace officer certificate stipend as the following per month ratio. And it goes there to education and peace officer certification. Somebody has a current associate's or intermediate license will be receiving a $50 stipend, which totals to $600 a year. Somebody that has a bachelor's or an advanced certificate, it's $100 stipend per month, which totals $1,200 a year. An individual with a master's in education or a master's and a peace officer license, $150 a month, which totals to $1,800 a year. I bring this to y'all today, council members, Mr. Mayor, just for something y'all can look at and take into consideration of the retention of the department. I know y'all asked from us to create this. We created it. We did some studies. At the same time, we want to make sure that they're going to stay here with this department. And by y'all giving that increase that you did mid-year, helped a lot, even though some of the officers that left our department had to remake that decision. But nevertheless, the guys that remain are grateful because a $2 increase plus a 4% is another 88 cents that they will receive this coming year, fiscal year. But just something to look at and for y'all to view it and make a determination what direction we want to go. Questions, concerns?
Thank you, Juan. I have a question for Mark. Hey, Mark, can any of these things that he spoke about be placed in for the budget, the current budget that we're working on?
Would we have to have a closed session before?
It would, we would have to look at some of the higher paid and see where the ones that have been here and where they fit on this and what impact that would have on the budget, because it will. Because if you have a 10-year person that makes the $30.40 and happens to be a lieutenant, that's another $2, so that's $32.40, and that'll be making more than some of our tenured officers here, and as well as our some of our command staff. So it doesn't just affect this 10-year, it affects the whole.
The one that I'm looking at least for this budget at a minimum would be the stipend, only because we did speak about rewarding employees for training, education, and how they're set apart from everybody else. So the one that he provided for us for the associates, intermediate, the advanced and masters, if the current employee that's a police officer has any of those certificates, he should already be getting paid at least for that amount of training that he has. Now, if he doesn't have it, then he doesn't get affected.
The assignment pay, rank pay, and the stipend can be done now very easily and not affect the budget.
Can you repeat that again?
the assignment pay, rank pay, and the stipend can take effect now and won't negatively affect the budget. We can work it in. The other, I would like to have
To the
some
following
time
year?
to show you how it impacts the whole, because it will
Yeah, I
have an
think-
impact on the whole.
So I think we can do that, at least in this budget. It'll show that, we mean business to keeping this man here to work here in our community. And plus, they already have this education, they already have the certificates, they should already be getting it anyway, if they haven't in the past.
And if we do the adjustment going into next year, at least they'll know something's coming, something else is coming, it's in the works. We can put
Right,
that in
and
that
then-
next budget.
Then we can have some time to see how that schedule fits in with everyone and how we would need to adjust each one individually, because it'll have to be looked at on an individual basis.
Yeah, I don't think I feel comfortable with you making it right now off the top, right?
I don't
Yeah,
feel
think-
comfortable
yeah.
doing it. But I'm okay with the schedule, because, if you see a 10-year plan, it tells a story and shows you where you can be pretty quick, whereas now you don't know that you've got that. Now, on the backside of it, council needs to know that's a commitment. It's a pretty substantial financial commitment that you're making to make that happen. Doesn't mean it's bad, it's just, it is a financial commitment that will affect the budget every year. And so each year that affects, we have to find that money from either cutting something else or additional revenue. So we're good with that.
I'm okay with that.
Appreciate it, sir. Awesome report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juan, that was a good presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to fire.
Yes, sir, I'm going to do fire. As y'all know, the fire department's volunteer. The only real piece in here that the city pays for is the workers' comp. That's always been paid for by the city, because it's not based on pay. It's based on a figure that the state comes up with in case a volunteer firefighter gets hurt while performing their duties. Unfortunately, it's not enough to, if they're out of their regular job, but that's a risk that they've always taken. This contract is what I wanted to talk about. It's presently at $115,000, and I wanted to raise it in 3 areas, and specific areas to the $151,000. If you've talked to any of them, you know that the last truck that they bought to fight home fires is about $800,000, and they're getting $115,000 from us. They get a lot from the county ESD, which is great. It helps us, but we also need to be a part. So what I wanted to do is tier this contract, because we asked the fire department to do things that are outside of the scope of firefighting. Number one is the parades.
Parades, that's what I was gonna say.
And a lot of the events, they're there at the Halloween festival, they're there at all of those things. And so I want to structure the contract with the firefighting amount at 115, add 12,000 for those to help throughout the year, that they help in the parades and the different things that they help us with. The other piece I wanted to put 12,000 in to an increase is emergency management. It's something that's, when we get into a hurricane or a flood or something, they're always there, and they're there for an extended period of time. We don't have to pay salaries to do that, but yet we need to compensate them for the work that they do during that time. And so I wanted to, in the contract, specify emergency management time, $12,000. And then the last one is something that y'all may be aware of and may not. Back in the 90s, the city put a $1 donation on the water bill. And so those donations, and it was specifically for fire department, those donations, people could choose to pay it or choose to not pay it. Through the years, most people have chosen to not pay it. It's very cumbersome and difficult for our finance department to do it. Whenever you get your bill, it could show it, but then you get to the way the finance works, it doesn't, what you're told,
numbers
it
go
doesn't
off.
include it. You have to add it. So it's real confusing, and people go, well, I pay taxes. Why do I have to pay a stinking $1? And even though it's only $12 in a year, it's just a irritating thing to people. So what I want to do is that amount is, the highest that amount has been is $850 to $1,000 in a month. So I want to, again, add the 12 to replace that $1 donation and remove that from our people's water bills. They can still donate at any time to the fire department, but we don't have to get complained, yelled at sometime. Why is that $1 there? That's ridiculous. I paid so many taxes and now you're charging me another $1. So I think it would be better, add those 3 to it, go to 151,000. It's still a steal, still a bargain, and move from there. The other line items is insurance, and on that department, they pay us back for those amounts.
And you're talking about liability and building insurance?
Correct. Those different liability amounts that they have on their trucks, the building, and whatever those are, we pay it to TML, and then we bill them, and they pay us back for that. And so we're really only talking about the special services contract going from 115 to 151.
Now, I guess I also should have asked this when the IT section was up. Do we have access to their systems as well for in case of redundancy, or are they completely separated in operation?
They're separate. They really don't have a system. Just got personal computers.
Well, I think we get a bargain with the fire department because other cities have to pay salary and retirement and vehicles and gas and maintenance and building. And for the longest time, I'm like everybody else in the community, I thought it was a city function. And it's not, but we get the benefits of having them here in town. I know a lot of towns are struggling with the EMS services because since COVID, they're still struggling trying to make an EMS out of the fire department, and we have both, and we have a really good system.
Luis, on that, we do from time to time if the computer crashes or something, like Oscar did a couple weeks ago. Gene's computer crashed, and hey, can I help? And he went over there and
Well, I mean, that's my,
pretty quick.
well, not a
Just help 'em
concern.
out.
Yeah, I was just wondering because if anything, just like PD goes down, we want to make sure we get that up and running as fast as possible. I mean, I agree.
But
We
their
need- we need a
systems, they
system.
don't have systems like the PD does. They just do reports on a personal computer, and so it's very, very simple, something like you'd have at your house. That's all I have on fire.
Any questions from the board in regards to fire? No, we'll
And
be
Chief
moving
is
on.
still out. Gene is still out and.
No, he's here. He came back today.
Okay, moving on to engineering.
Engineering, and I don't really know why we've got engineering, but it does engineering, building inspector, and plat reviews. We have a lot of inspections. We budgeted 110, we're gonna hit 150, so we're gonna budget 150 for next year. Plat reviews is 10. We'll probably hit about that this year as well. Engineering is just things that y'all ask or come up through the year that Hanson, which is our engineering firm, needs to take care of and look at. Like there was a request of a sidewalk to connect Village East and Windcrest back to our trail. You know, I need to have money to be able to ask that question. They've answered that question. They can design it for about $45,000 and then it'll cost us about 200. But anyway, those kinds of things, we don't know that unless we ask them. The permit fees are covered by, the inspections are covered by the permit fees. Our revenue for that this year is going to be right at 260,000. So it more than covers, and that's what everybody wants, their fees to cover the inspections. So we have looked at different firms, but they're way more expensive, and they're not. They would call for an inspection today, and it would be 3 days before. All of them would be 3 days before they would do it. If we've got an inspection that, as long as they call in by about 4:30, 4:45, he's gonna do it that evening, and so it works really good.
And so that's where contract/building inspector would come in?
Correct.
Hey, Mark, is that gonna be okay if we ever get going with the subdivision that is coming up here on 100? Well, those homes?
Should be. If it's too
So
much,
the-
we'll-
Okay, so that's 150,000, and I'm trying to figure out how that gets broken down in terms of the contract and building inspectors. Oh, so we pay one person 150,000 not to be here?
They do plan reviews, all of the plans are reviewed, and then does all of the inspections, depending on the building. How many inspections will you do on a typical house? It's about 15 separate inspections that has to be done, so a lot of inspections.
Could we hire somebody in-house for that amount?
We've advertised and looked 4 different times over the last 5, 6 years, and nobody has certifications. We would have to, some of them have some of the certifications, but don't have them all, and we just haven't been able to find anybody. So that's why I went for the other piece is hire a firm, but that's worse, because then you don't have the good service that we have now. It's phenomenal. If we have a plans that for a house or as long as it's not a huge commercial building, come in on a Thursday or Friday, he's going to review them over the weekend, have them back Monday, and they're ready to go. Any other city, it's 2, 3, 4 weeks or more. So we're in really, really good shape with what we have.
Also, year to year, laws keep changing. Is he updated to all the laws that have been brought up recently?
Yes, sir.
On the coding, the codes and buildings and all that stuff?
Yes, sir.
Do you foresee we would need one in the future, next 3 years, the way we're growing and developments popping up left and right? Is that something we may have to jump to?
We may have to do something different, but at this time, I don't see that.
All right, moving on to environmental.
Good evening, council members. I'm going to present the environmental. Really, nothing major has changed. If you go down the line items, I think the only one that kind of sticks out, if any, would be we did do a small decrease on the gas prices on the fuel for vehicles for the same reason in PD. When we budgeted last year, we budgeted 10,000 for our environmental vehicle that we have, and right now we're projected to hit 5, so we're projecting next year to 7, so we're dropping it from 10 to 7,000. The other one that might stand out as well is the lot mowing Everything else is staying the same, but the one that stands out might be the lot mowing, those 11,000 that are projected for this year. Those are the lots that have been cut throughout the city that we have to collect from the people that get their lots cut. So that's something that it's in the process that they're trying to collect, so we're trying to see if we could get some monies back in there to fulfill those amounts that we have there. But we're keeping it the same, or we're keeping it at 3,000 projected for next year. Besides that, nothing major in this, on these line items, unless you all have any questions that you all could see that something sticks out or anything like that.
On the mosquitoes, spraying supplies, you got 57, you have 0 on those ones. For the mosquito spraying?
Yes, sir. That actually, we take out of the, where is it at? The supplies and postage. Supplies and postage, we just put them together where we could get what we need either for code, for animal, for health, and also to include the mosquito spraying.
So that way you don't lock it into just once, you don't lock it
okay, thank
into
you.
just something specific, correct?
Correct, yeah. So we combined that line item to the supplies, and that's where we get the monies from.
Mark, do you think we could get rid of that line item next year?
Okay.
How many of those,
Couldn't this year because it's got a 57 in the prior year, but after this year we can.
how many of those sprayers do we have as far as for mosquito spraying? Do we have 1, 2? How many do
We have one, sir. Yes, sir.
Mark, is there a way we can increase to that one? I know we get complaints whenever we get mosquito, that they don't see the mosquito truck coming around the alleyways, or, they don't get around town, the way they're supposed to. I don't know if it's just complaints, or is it maybe we need to add another mosquito sprayer or something?
We do better than anybody in the country. We do half the city one night and half the city the next night. So they really request that you take a couple of days between. But we stretch that and we'll go half the city one night, half the city the other night. And if it's bad, go back the other half the other night and the other half. So
And we get the parks done every day, so every time they're
we
out
get
there,
the
regardless,
every
we do the
day,
parks.
so we do much better than anybody. If you do that, then you have to have another vehicle, another sprayer, another employee. I think.
Yeah, I've had good feedback on that, so.
I mean, people are
obviously, yeah.
griping whenever there's mosquitoes,
Yeah.
but,
It just doesn't stop.
most of it's their fault. They don't cut the grass enough, take the water off, and people can spray their own yard too.
I have a question,
Don't have to
just
wait for the city all the time.
not budget-wise, but I know there's the lands out here, one of these out here, empty lots, Elvas, between us and Elvas or something, we got a long little track there. Who do they call, right, other than us? Who do we direct them to when people would say, hey, this is kind of overgrown?
Outside the city?
The one right by Elvis, remember one time we talked about that yard next to Real Storage?
Just call the city and code enforcement will get with them.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on to emergency medical services.
I'll handle that. Once again, that's a contract, and as you see, it stays flat except for there's increase in insurance cost to them. On their workers' comp, because they pay their employees, they pay all of their workers' comp reimburses. So the workers' comp, billing insurance, liability insurance, all is reimbursed at whatever the cost is. The only fee that we give them is the $160,000, and we're keeping that the same this year. It was the same last year, and the year before, the 310 was the 150 that was added. If you'll recall that we helped on a remount ambulance, a one-time deal. So the contract's been steady for 3 or 4 years. It's 160, and they're good with that. And what helps them in deference to the fire department is they get to bill the patient as well. So they're doing fine.
Any questions on this before we move on to garbage?
Garbage, real quickly, is just through the years, people leave and don't pay all their water bill, sewer bill, or garbage, and so we have to write it off every year about that amount. When you look at the total dollar amount, it's really small, minute, but that's what that is.
Thank you. Streets?
Mark,
Oh,
before
excuse me.
we continue, I'm gonna have to excuse myself right now from the meeting.
And on the, sorry, more before Carlos, I'm sorry. So everything that has to do with the recycling and that's all separate, we don't have to deal with any of that. They're just on Red, I don't know, not Red River anymore, but Waste Management.
No, we do, we have the recycling trailer and all of that. What you're probably thinking of is the company that came and asked.
Redfin
for-
or
for-
whatever, Red?
And that's Redfish to get it from your residence if people sign up for it. That's separate.
All right, moving to streets.
Mr. Mayor, council members, on the streets, I don't have much. I just want to draw your attention to a couple line items. And one is contract labor, overtime. The other one is overtime salaries. If you'll see, the approved budget was 500 for contract and 4,000 for the city employees. On the projected, it's kind of going to even out, or maybe a little bit more in contract labor. What we're proposing is just go 2,000, 2,000, because that kind of distributes it evenly on those employees. The other thing I have on streets is the under street projects toward the bottom of the line items, and that will remain at 100,000. And then if you look at the approved budget and the proposed budget, you'll see a slight decrease on the proposed budget for this year.
Carlos, I know we have contracts with the company to be paving these streets on the side from all the, I guess, all the people using those side roads. And that's gonna be done by a company separately. So when it says street, you're talking about like the asphalt to lay over and patch up works on other
We're
areas?
talking about the street improvements. That's all I have on the street, so unless you have some questions.
Hey, Carlos, I have a question for you. Do all the employees have uniforms for streets? Because I know I see some, but they don't wear uniforms, or they're part-time, or...
The city employees do, the temps, which is a contract labor, don't. They did at one time, but what happened is we had a lot of turnover on the contract labor. So we were getting them shirts and then they'd leave and wouldn't turn them in, so we ended up paying for them. But we're trying to work on probably them wearing a vest or something that they can be identified.
Like the guys that clean the restrooms there at the parks, at the nature park, is that contract labor or is it city employees?
They're split. So if they don't have a uniform, then they're contract labor.
Okay, thank you.
No more questions with streets, we'll move on to parks.
Parks, again, I don't have much of a change. The only thing you will see is on the mowing machine repairs, we did spend quite a bit of money this year. We're gonna drop it down. We do have two new mowers ordered, So that will cut down on our repairs and maintenance. And really, that's about the biggest increase that we have on the line items.
Does that
So
also include,
on the proposed budget, you'll have a little bit of an increase.
does that also include like the weed eaters and stuff like that? New weed eaters and, or functional?
We just purchased,
Everything?
we purchased three a couple of months ago, so.
All right, thank you.
So Carlos, do you have people that work basically on streets and then on parks, or do you have them working wherever you need them at that point?
No, we separate them. Now, there's times that they have to go to either one, so.
If you would need to hire one more person, where would you put them?
As a matter of fact, here in a couple of weeks, we have one employee coming in. He'll be on the streets.
Is that the gentleman that was hired from Port Isabel or something like that? Oh, no, that's something different, right? That's maintenance, it's,
Yes, yes.
okay, thank you.
That's all I have.
Carlos, when you say street projects on 13520, what's considered street projects? Like, what is the job there?
You're talking about street projects? Street projects is a major reconstruction or where we're gonna do one block, 2 blocks of streets. It's considered a major project.
The
Not-
black
not a
tar,
patch
the black
job.
type?
Above that, where it says street drainage and repairs, that's where it's minor,
Cleaning.
patch, asphalt patch that we need to put a patch hole here and there. That's where that money's used. The street project, like he said, would be, man, we gotta reconstruct this whole street, and we set aside some monies to do one, that maybe is bad, that couldn't be done with other funding.
Is that considered like the back alleys that are getting blacktop or no?
That could happen as well.
All right, thank you.
Carlos, but there's a decrease from what I'm calculating here, about $92,000 less that you're requesting this year from last year. We have on streets, 415,711. This year, we're requesting or proposing 93,399. That's a decrease of 92,000. I appreciate it, but why such a big drop?
We do have a lot of street repairs coming up, but are gonna be done through different monies. One we have down Alamo Street, South Alamo Street. We're gonna do a sewer line replacement, and at the same time, they're gonna redo the whole street. And there's a couple others that have been done through grants. That's the
So,
reason
yeah.
for that, so.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you very much. Moving on to library.
Good evening, council members, mayor. So basically, the library is doing very well. We don't have major increases this year. We do have a small decrease in our technology maintenance agreement. That's because last year we did receive some money for our servers and things like that in the library. And this year, we don't need that, or that's not going to be necessary. Do you have any questions for me?
Ma'am, I have a question for you. Do we have anything as far as not like Wi-Fi, checking out Wi-Fi
Yes,
boxes?
there's Wi-Fi hotspots that are checked out. That is through a grant that we receive. The city does not pay any of that. So we do have those circulating. We have 10 units at the present. And the public is invited to get a library card. They do have to have established account for 6 months to get these hotspots. Since it is a piece of equipment, they get to take it home. I believe it's 3 weeks at a time, and use it at their homes or on travels or wherever they need to. They're very reliable little hotspots, and they work well.
Are those like the T-Mobile ones that
Yes,
they were? Okay,
they're
great.
actually, exactly,
Awesome.
they're T-Mobile.
Awesome.
How about, do we have ebooks, like checking out ebooks?
We have two platforms. We have the Simply E, which is graduated down from the Overdrive, and we also have one called Libby. And both of those are, we join in a consortium. The city doesn't pay any of that funding. We get funding from other sources to pay for those platforms. And people have access to thousands and hundreds of thousands of books on there that we could not house because our library is not big enough. So
That's a whole nother thing, right?
it gives us added, because when we report to our state library, we have to supply a per capita in, as far as materials go. So if we did not have those ebooks, we would not comply. We would not be certified, or whatever the case may be. So it's really important that we have those platforms.
Hey, Mark, do we ever consider expanding the library? I know it's been that size since I was a kid. I mean, has it ever been part of a discussion in the city as far as making it a little bit bigger or adding another room to it or something?
There's been discussion about expanding it to the back and complications with that because of where the electrical is to the side, a new location, but
Parking
it's
is difficult.
never caught a lot of traction because of the cost.
Is there grant money out there for something like that we can go after for new libraries or upgrade up?
There's always opportunities. They just need to be looked at and.
Well, you guys are doing a good job, and I see a lot of participation, and, you know, I
Thank
know
you.
the same thing, that building's been there since
Yes.
I've been a kid, and, you know, just always wondered how
Well,
nice it would be to upgrade.
It is a small building, but I don't know, I mean, I'm just saying, because it is very nostalgic for people, and they'll come in and they'll say,
Yeah.
oh my God, it looks the same.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's good or bad, but to me, it's like, I
Blast from
grew
the
up there,
past.
so I
Yeah.
kinda, you know.
You're like, wow, man, this place hasn't changed, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but we do compete. We still compete with the Brownsvilles, and we give everyone a library card. We don't care where you're from.
That's
You know,
good to hear.
if you come in and you want a library card, as long as you have an ID, here's your library card.
Now, for folks that are residents or non-residents, we still have a process for them as well?
It doesn't matter.
Great,
We don't charge a penny for anything,
awesome,
unless they have fines, of course, or
yes.
they lose their card, or things like that. But otherwise, everyone gets a library card. We're like the Oprah of the libraries. You get a card, everybody gets a card.
Mark, do they have also a line item for community outreach, something where they can get the community involved? I know they do a lot of stuff with the kids during the summertime, but I know they also have the volunteers that donate or.
Yeah, if I may answer, Mark can answer also, but if I may answer, we do have a Friends of the Library group, and they're not extremely active, but they do bring in funding for grants that they apply for and things like that. So we do get funding. That is, if you see us at the schools, if you see us at different events, that's where we get the funding for that, from our Friends group.
What is that miscellaneous line item that went from 750 to 2,000?
Oh, what was that, Mark? I forgot that. I'm sorry, that was the credit card. Because we're not offering that service. I think we started offering it last year sometime. So as a result, the amount went up that we had projected for last year. So I think that's what the offset is.
Talk about like a merchant machine where people
Yeah,
swipe?
because we
and-
didn't
okay.
even offer any kind of credit, debit.
It was all cash?
Everything had to be cash.
Oh, wow, okay.
And it was really inconvenient for a lot of folks to pay their fees or whatever, printouts, whatever.
Okay.
So now that we have that, more people can take advantage.
Awesome, thank you.
Or they don't have to go out to an ATM and come back, or things like that.
Well, thank you for a great job.
Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Moving on
evening.
to Community Center.
Hello again.
Just how many more times, ma'am? I want to know. how
Last
many-
time. So the community center budget is pretty much staying the same. You'll see a high increase under the maintenance of building. We got a quote to hopefully get the entire interior of the building painted and updated. So that's why you see that increase. Other than that, everything stays pretty much the same, right? Yeah. Oh, no. Maintenance of equipment is going up to 1,800, right? Why? Yeah, that's it.
The rest of the charges for community center is through the grant for the senior citizens that we went over last time. So electricity, liability insurance, and utilities and all runs through and is paid through that grant. So that's why you think, well, what else is there? We utilize that grant to fund the rest of it.
Now, I know we have there's land next to, well, it used to be the old firehouse and behind the community center. Whose land does that belong to?
Us,
Have we ever thought about expanding that community center?
yes,
What's gonna hold us back?
money.
Money. Oh, money.
You can't give tax decreases and make those kinds of things happen. I know that's not what we
No,
want to hear, but
no,
it's
it's
the
absolutely
truth.
what we need to know.
Any questions or?
I don't know, if anything, just, if we can just kind of start seeing what it would be.
Get an idea of a price range, and then I guess start budgeting for that for the next couple of years to maybe do an upgrade to that.
Because I
community
know,
center.
like, just for instance, just speaking on personal opinions, I know everybody in Los Fresnos pretty much has to head out of Los Fresnos to get a venue that'll get 150 or so. So that's a lot of money that the community members of Los Fresnos having to spend in Bronzeville or Harlingen or somewhere else. But if we had something a little bit bigger, maybe we could keep them in-house. I mean, no, for us, it's not so much about making the money, but being able to have those celebrations here for a little bit bigger. I know it does a great job. I know I had an activity there last month. So just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's pretty much rented every weekend, Saturday and Sunday,
Yeah.
and most
Or
Fridays.
even having two, because sometimes it's like you want to rent it, it's like, oh, it's already rented for the next couple of weeks. That way, if we had two going, one can be maybe available for those quick notices.
200 can fit in there. The problem with extending it, people don't want a long, narrow facility. So yes, we have land to the east of there, but then it'll be long and narrow. So the existing building provides some restrictions because of that. So it's not as easy as just adding on, you know what I'm saying?
Any other questions about the community center? Thank you very much. Moving on to emergency management.
Evening again. Emergency management, these line items, if you look at them, none of them have changed. Everything's staying the same. If anything, you'll see a slight increase on the technology maintenance agreements, and that's because of the prices going up. So there was a small increase on that one. Besides that, everything else, we're trying to keep it the same, and that's basically it on that one, unless you all have any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to other general.
I'll cover that. There's just a couple items there. Is the payroll that we outsource. We do a lot of it, but the actual checks and the accounting part of it's done outsourced, and it's very cheap for what they give us, as you can see. And then some fixed assets, and then the other for employee recognition and stuff that we will do. And that's all I have.
Pretty self-explanatory. If no questions, we'll move on to community health.
Community health, I'll go over that as well. That's a grant that we get through the community health program. offering the classes throughout the city, and the mornings and the evenings and weekends, and just a lot of stuff is handled through there. There's no change in that program. They give us about $60,000 a year for that, and so that stays the same.
Thank you very much. If no other questions, I'll conclude this portion of the budget.
Jackie, can you hand out that list? Before we go to the utility, to finish out, we have to finish out with utility. The general fund, we always give you some items that, besides some of the things that you've mentioned, that we'll add to the list. Some of the things that people have brought up to us over time is at the nature park, parking lot lighting. Some people want it. I don't think it's a critical deal. That's a personal thing. Just because we don't have lighting on the trail, and we kind of want people not to go at night and scare off the animals. So anyway, that's something that people have said. Alamo Warehouse, which is...
Hold on 1 second. So they don't want lighting on the trail?
We don't want lighting on the trail because it changes what we'll run up all the nature, and the animals won't hang around if you got lights on the trail. So if you don't have lights on the trail, why do you need lights in the parking lot? It's just me. However, people say, well, I get there right before daylight, and it would be nice to have lighting, and I'm okay with that. So, but it's $22,000. Alamo Warehouse is the facility that we're letting the school use part of it. And we have some storage stuff area on the other part. After this year, the school will move out because they'll have the CTE building done, and we'll use that for public works, for streets, to put all of our generators and our signs and our equipment for streets in there. But we need to do some lighting upgrade with the light fixtures in there. A lot of them are old and outdated. That's $6,000. Montes Castro Park, when it was built with a couple of lights that are solar powered. They just don't last and they don't work good. So we've got an upgrade to that. It's $30,150. It's kind of expensive, but the solar lighting just doesn't work very well. Memorial Park, there's from some of the comments made here, as well as our CDC board and other people, is if you go around Memorial Park, there's some of those exercise stations that are used a lot and some not, and so they've asked us to look at changing some of those out that aren't used as much. The ones that you crawl up and go over and down, and nobody ever gets on those.
I know
I
others.
get on those all the time. What are you talking
Except
about?
you.
No, just like,
Don't make sure you don't stay up there, Mayor.
But mainly, they like the chin-up bars, the push-ups, the sit-ups.
yeah, the
those
pull-up
kind of
bars,
things.
those are all great.
Like, I know other cities have a centralized area with a small pavilion where it has all that set up in one location so that it's not also scattered around. Have we thought about something like that instead of putting them out in different areas? 'Cause
We have that at Memorial Park, just to the west of the pavilion. There's probably about 12 to 15.
Yeah, there's
of
leg
those.
press, there's back workouts and all that kind of
I
stuff.
guess I gotta go take my exercises, right? I'm
No,
sorry.
I see that the next line item, getting a little ahead of there, but the fans for the pavilion, I know that a lot of people working out there when it's hot, those fans are much needed.
Yeah, we just didn't find anywhere to put it in the budget. I think we'll have more trouble with them than they're worth. But you asked me to get a price. We couldn't put it in the budget. We'll have to have electrical upgrade to the system to be able to do that. You know, that pavilion's been there since the mid-90s, and we've made it. I don't know why all of a sudden we need to have fans, because I know that then it'll be a problem while they're not working, birds got in them, and when do they, you know, how do you turn them on, how do you turn them off? And we'll have to have employees coming around, turning them on and turning them off at certain times. So there's a lot of problems with doing that. So doesn't mean that we can't. That's why I did some research on, usually the outdoor fans don't last very long, especially in they don't last very long if you have them on a back porch. If you have them in a situation like that, it's even less, but hey, there's the figure. So we don't have funded for that. The next page, and we'll, when we go through water and sewer, that a couple of things that didn't, we're due for a couple of new trucks, and they don't fit in this budget either, because they can really be funded out of the general fund or the water or sewer fund, but we just don't have the extra funding this year to make those two happen. One of them's a different type of truck is the reason why it's more expensive, and the other is a lighting upgrade in the warehouse there. Those are old lightings, probably from 40 years ago, and they need to be upgraded to LED lights and different ballast. So that's also not available in the budget this year. So y'all need to be aware of that. And we'll see, maybe through the year we can gather up some funds to make those happen. But as of right now, they're unfunded.
Do we own a cherry picker truck, something like that?
We do not. Ready to go to utility fund?
Let's do it.
That's the last part that we have. That's water and sewer. On page 9, you'll see the starting with the water revenue, we just got a little increase. Seemed like because of building, we'll always have a little increase. The rest of the water revenues and sewer revenues are going to stay the same, or we're projecting even decrease because we want to be conservative instead of if we're think that there's going to be an increase and then there's not, well then y'all have got problems with me and saying, hey, why can't we meet our budget? Well, because we were too aggressive in our projections. So we're conservative there. You can see that in revenues, total revenues, 3.1 million. We're at 2.9 this year. We're probably going to hit about 3,060,000 this year. And so we're just projecting a little bit of increase. The next piece on expenses, those are, we will skip that part because those are all added together to get total. The salaries for, and what we do in water and sewer, because they work so much, some water, some sewer, we split them half and half. Y'all have already gone through those budgets last week, and so that's all the salaries and then the benefits that's for the water and sewer. Just so y'all know, some of my salary comes out of there and finance and those things too. If Carlos had all of those employees, he wouldn't know what to do with them. So some of those are some of ours. So that's the rest of page 9. If you go over to 10, it starts really the line items that they'll go over starting on page 10.
Mr. Mayor, council, people again, on the services and miscellaneous on water, everything's pretty well stays the same except for the very last line item, which is excess water from Southmost Regional. The reason being is our plant has been offline due to construction improvements, and we're dependent solely on Southmost. And that's the reason you'll see that we have that much
out so far on that. Hopefully, we can get the plant back on in October, and we'll obviously decrease the flow from Southmost back to our normal requirement. So that's all I have on that. If you have any questions.
So right now, Carlos, we're still working with the half that we worked on. We're now using that and we're repairing other sections on the water plant, or how?
No, the water plant's, it's again a major upgrade. Currently, we're at the 1 million capacity. When we're complete, we'll be at 1.5 million gallons per day. And that'll bring us up to, we're modernizing at the same time. This plant was built in the early 1950s. And actually, the footprint of the plant has not changed. We've added components throughout the years just to bring it into compliance. But we had a major assessment on the plant. And so now that's the reason why we're doing it this time.
So our plant's down right now, we're not operating on that. We're solely operating on the water coming from Southmost as far as producing. We still have to send it to the system, and so a lot of our pieces of the water distribution system are working, just not producing water.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now, next category is materials and supplies, also underwater. On that, there's not really a major change. Other than the water plant not operating, but some of those things still have to function. So that remains pretty well the same.
I know chemicals have increased pretty much across the board on many aspects. Is that something?
Chemicals, right now, it's hard to predict. We proposed 120 this budget year. We're proposing 150 for this coming year. It's kind of an unknown. The only reason we're using that is because of the prices of certain chemicals, or we do not have any idea what they're going to turn out when we go to bid. One thing we do foresee is before we were using 150-pound chlorine cylinders, and we're going to convert to 2,000, or I'm sorry, 2-ton, 1-ton cylinders, which is 2,000 pounds. And I think we're going to experience a decrease on chlorine consumption. We had the same happen at the wastewater plant when we did the improvements here last year. We were using 150s. We went to 1-tons, and we've shown a pretty good savings on the chemical itself. But again, until we go into full operation, we will not know a true number. And then on repairs and maintenance, again, we're about the same. We will be looking at maybe a slight decrease again on the overall budget. And again, that's due for when we get back online. A lot of that stuff is going to be new. So hopefully we don't foresee a lot of repairs and maintenance on those things.
Maintenance on the water side, if you had extra $50,000, what would you do with that?
Do I have one now, I'm sorry?
An extra $50,000.
I'll find something. Can't tell you what, but I'll find something.
I'm just, because I know last week we voted to reduce taxes and stuff like that, but I'm also concerned with some of the things that you guys need as well. So we have to balance that out. And I know that building has been out there since the 50s, and I know we haven't, I don't know, I wouldn't say, but building that old does need repairs and does need upgrades. Some people may even say it needs a new building.
The only thing I can see, council members, at this point, and I did talk to Mark about it, we have had our fair share of water main breaks here in the past month, 2 months, and that's something that we've talked about, upgrading some of these lines. We have a lot of AC pipe in the ground that's been there for years. That's obsolete now. So everybody's going to either PVC or something similar to that. So we've been looking at that every year, so.
Can you tell them where those locations are?
Yeah, some of those they mainly consist of 4-inch lines. Some of them is on Canal Street from Fresno all the way to North Arroyo. And then we have another section by North Brazil from Alamo to Canal. And that's what's been giving us the most problems at this point. We have other bigger size AC lines, but they're a little more durable. So, but that's something that we're looking at, and really we need to do away with 4-inch lines, period. They're not really acceptable anymore.
With the COVID money, y'all approved to do some sewer upgrades for the sewer lines that have similar problems, and manholes that also cause infiltration into our system, and so then the sewer plant has to work overtime. Once we get that piece done, we're gonna look, and we also got a grant to do some others that Hanson is designing right now with a grant. When we get those two, we'll look and see what monies we have left, and of that $2 million that we had from the COVID money, and be able to identify what additional sewer lines we need to do and what additional water lines we'll do. And those two areas that he mentioned could be potential for use of those funds.
Thank you.
Carlos, on the fire hydrants, are we good on those right now? Or are you adding some more on to the new subdivisions that are coming up, or that's enough that we have enough right now?
Fire hydrants are designed by rule. Any subdivision or street or whatever is built, there's a spacing requirement. So they're all put in place accordingly to the standards. We just had all the fire hydrants flow tested. I think we have 200 and, what is it? We have about 250 fire hydrants. Of the 250, there's 3 that need repairs, and they will be done here by the end of the month. And when I say repairs, we're looking at, these are actually consist of what we call complete overhauls. Take the guts out, put new ones. So we're in good shape, and we're, again, one of the few cities that does that on a yearly basis.
Okay, thank you, Carlos.
And if he had another 50, he would buy one of those trucks, probably.
I was gonna mention that, but.
Go ahead.
The only other thing, information technology, well, that's not my department, but going back on capital outlay on water, the only thing we have there is the water meters, which we are replacing or add on as new houses or buildings or come on board. So we have to have a stock on that at all times.
I'll mention real quick, the information technology, that was the other half that Oscar mentioned, except that you'll notice that we didn't put capital outlay here. We didn't have the funding for it. So we did it through the general fund, but the others this is the other 25%, and the other, in a few minutes, you'll see it in sewer, to be able to fund that. So you'll know that. Top of page 11 is just the interest on the different notes that we have through the years for grants that we've received, and some of them low-interest loans that we've got. If you can see, one of them's 1984, 1984A, and 1985. Those are 40-year notes that were done way back yonder. They'll go away here in another couple years, so that's pretty cool. The debt service is just what Southmost Regional, we're a 2.28% owner in that, so that's our share of the debt for that. And so that totals the total water expenditures, pretty well flat, except the one on the Southmost Regional purchases and then labor. So then you can see we go into salaries and benefits for sewer. If you look back in water, it's half and half, so those are the other half. And then Carlos can take off there and page 11 where it says materials and supplies sewer, pretty flat.
Under materials and supplies on the sewer, excuse me, part of it, the only increase that we'll see is under sewer testing. We're required to do a lot of testing on the our effluent going out of the plant, so it's a requirement by permit and by TCQ rules. Other than that, on that category, we kind of remain the same. We go down now to repairs and maintenance on the sewer. The only jump that we'll see is under sewer plant equipment. And we have certain items there that operate 24/7. They go down, we have to get them up and running again. If not, we are prone to exceed our permit requirements. So we do have backups, but still it's, we need to have the permanent units in place.
Do we have any of them down right now?
Yes, we have one, but like I said, we have backups, so it's kind of a temporary thing. So when this one is repaired, we'll put the backup in place and use it wherever else we need to. That's all I have under repairs and maintenance. And again, that's it. IT, I'll skip. And then really under services and miscellaneous, I really don't have anything on that. Anything that's, we'll have a light increase on the budget, but that's items that really don't pertain to the plant or sewer system itself.
I know you all put up the dry beds, a few dry beds out, new ones. Is that what was that what we saw 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when we took the tour there at the park? Do you foresee?
The dry beds you might have seen were at the water plant.
Yes, sorry, that was a water plant.
We do have similar at the wastewater plant. And the only other thing I have is under capital outlay sewer is you'll see that there's a line item for 52,500, and that's our match for these 4 or 5 sections of sewer line that we're going to replace here in a few months. That's under a CDBG grant, and that's all I have, unless you have some questions.
As we expand east and west, do you foresee any troubles in terms of, I know we want to grow, but we also need to make sure we grow smart. And so is our growth going along with what you guys are updating and doing everything for that?
Yeah, well, currently, like, we're in the process of finishing up the
from Walmart West. We installed the sewer line. That's active now. The only thing we're pending is the Harvey Escalante area. Most of the line is in place. There's just a section that we're waiting on an easement, so we can continue and finish that. We did have we're gonna add a new lift station for that project. And then we rehabbed another lift station on the north side of town. That's active. The only thing we're waiting for is the electrical panel. Everything electric is back ordered, so it's functioning with the existing panel. But once that gets in, we'll be back with a brand new lift station. Also, we're gonna run water west from Walmart to 1575 and loop around. And we're also working on that at this time. I think engineering is working on that, so that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did we cover all the topics?
That's all of the budgets.
All righty, well, that concludes today. It's 7:55. We'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you and have a good evening.